On this, we're going to use it as a waistcoat. Let me show you. Ordinarily, you get most effective results out of a plaid design as an accent for a solid color. Not as trimming, but as full parts of a dress.
There, but for the lack of talent is me. Huh? Or should I say, is I? What are you talking about? Ellen Douglas, the great fashion designer. Dream of my young life. Huh. Well, it just goes to show you what I don't know about my own sister. What stopped you? I found out it takes talent. Something I seem to be fresh out of. So I went off to the big city and became a secretary, where they only ask for brains. Oh. Then is that why you finally decided to come home and marry Bill Porter? Fresh! I'm getting married because I happen to be in love. What's more, I've got brains. But it'll be nice to be just a housewife. Well, there'll be no great demand for either talent or brains. Why, Ellen Douglas, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard you say. Of course you don't mean it. Certainly I mean it. All you have to know is what switch to turn, what buttons to push, and what cans to buy. Does Bill know he's marrying a can opener instead of a wife? Bill? He's in love with me. He'll never know the difference. What are you making? Jelly. Home economics assignment. We make them over the weekend and bring them into class Monday morning. Now who's being silly? Learning how to make jelly when all you have to do is go down to the grocer's, pick out any kind you want in a jar. Would you rinse this out for me, please? Sure. Not just learning how to make jelly. Learning how to make a home. Oh, Susan, you sound like my grandmother, not my kid sister. Well, it's true. You'll find it out once you're married. Oh, thanks. I see. And being an old married woman, you know all the answers. Well, I know that much. Oh, honestly, Ellen, I don't think it's a bit smart talking the way you do. Well, you've got brains, and I know you've got talent, too. There's certainly plenty of ways of using them both in making a home. Well, you could make a wonderful wife. I intend to, my pet, but not because of the way I squeeze a mop or flip a dust cloth. Is house cleaning all you think of in connection with making a home? It's all I don't want to think of. Goodness, aren't you using too much sugar? Huh. How would you know what's too much sugar? I was Mother's little helper when you were a howling brat, remember? And I still think that's a lot of sugar. Not for the jelly I'm making. Anyway, not for the way I'm making it. I had this same argument with Mother right here back at the beginning of the term. I thought I smelled strawberries. Strawberry jelly? Mm-hmm. Didn't think that was possible. Seems to me I remember Mother saying something about strawberries not having enough, what do you call it? Pectin. That's it. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first things we learned in class. There's not enough pectin in strawberries to make jelly. So, when this comes to a boil, I just add the pectin. Then it'll gel. Not a minute, I'll show you. Is that why you use so much sugar? No, not exactly. You see, jelly has to have the proper proportion of sugar in order to gel, no matter how you make it. Now, one way, you add less sugar because you boil down your juices. But I'm doing it the short boil way, where there's no boiling down. So, I have to add more sugar at the start in order for the proportion to be the same. Pretty scientific, huh? Now, stop throwing your higher education at me. What do you mean by the short boil way? Just watch. Now, see, it's just come to a boil. So now, I add the pectin. And I only use half a bottle. That's right to that mark. There. Now I let it come to a full rolling boil again. It won't take long. You like to cook, don't you, Pet? Oh, it's not just liking to cook. It's more. Well, it's accomplishing something. It's me cooking. Me, Susan Douglas. And not just cooking, but, well, creating something special.
Oh, I wish Miss Holland could talk to you. She could say it so much better than I can.
Who's Miss Holland?
She's my home economics teacher. Oh, Oh, there. Now it's come to a full rolling boil. And it boils for only a minute. That's the short boil method, which is only possible when you add pectin, as I did. And then there's the long boil method, where you depend on the fruit's own pectin. In that case, you boil anywhere from, 15 to 30 minutes, until it boils down to where the sugar and the acid and the pectin are in the right proportion. And that's called the gelling stage. There, the minute's over. My jelly's done. Now, isn't that simple?
Almost too simple. How do you know it's done?
It's a recipe. Thousands of people use it. Why should it go wrong for me?
Oh, then you do believe in shortcuts, even in the home.
For some things, yes. But a recipe isn't a shortcut. It's scientific. There are people who know how much sugar and how much acid and how much pectin. Oh, I wish Miss Holland were here. I remember the first jelly I made. Mine happened to be the first glass that she picked up that morning.
Well, there's one nice thing about it happening in class. Here it's part of our learning. At home it would be a minor tragedy. We'll come back to this again, but there's one thing we can be pretty sure of. There was too little of either sugar or acid or pectin. Not enough of any one means soup instead of jelly. Now let's see how this peach jelly is. This is what we'd call a little soft. It won't hold its form, and when you cut it, the surfaces are rounded. The probability is there wasn't enough acid. That's a nice one. Just stiff enough to hold its shape. And when you cut it, it cuts easily with sharp, clean-cut angles. It has a clear, delicate color. It's very good. Well, not quite. This one's too stiff. That's likely to happen with apple jelly unless you're very careful. It won't spread easily, and it's a little hard to handle. This time the probability is there was too much pectin. Or with some fruits it could be caused by too much sugar. And if it's the sugar, it's likely to form crystals. We'll come back to some of these in a moment, but first I'd like to speak of the important part that mixtures of many kinds play in our lives. A doctor calls them prescriptions, and our health may depend on them, sometimes our lives. For an artist, they're mixes, certain base colors, certain proportions, and he knows exactly what the result will be. We women call them recipes, and they're just as important in the kitchen as they are in the laboratory or the studio. And it's just as important that they be right, as the results to be right. Now, to get that result, you must follow your recipe exactly. Remember that. When you make jams or jellies, your recipe will call for pectin, sugar, acid, and fruit in the proper proportion. Now, it's important to understand right now that pectin is not a simple thickening agent, as is cornstarch or gelatin. Pectin's a gelling substance found in fruits in varying amounts, and it gels only when in proper balance with sugar and acid. Now, we know exactly what that balance should be, because a lot of people have spent lifetimes on this problem. They've worked out tests and special recipes to solve this problem. Now, it's tests like these and recipes worked out in a scientific way that you're here to learn. Now, let's get back to the very first jelly that we looked at. Susan, this is your jelly, isn't it? Now, what do you suppose happened that made it come out like this?
Well, I'd already tried the short boil way in class, and yesterday Mother was in the kitchen as I was getting started.
You know you can do a short boil. You've already done it. Why not try it the other way this time? Live dangerously.
Very funny. know what it is with you. You think your way's better, don't you?
Old-fashioned, that's me.
You are not. You're prejudiced. I just think in this case it's what Granny taught you.
Oh, well, that may be it partly. But mostly I think it's because it makes a better tasting jelly.
Oh, Mother. You only think it's better because you're used to it. It's different, a little, but you can't say it's better. Now just look. You couldn't use plums that are all ripe like these. Not if you do it the long boil way. I know that much.
Not all like that, no. It's just better when some are a little green.
Well, I like to taste a fruit when it's ripe. I think most people do. There's more flavor that way.
But you said yourself that you're taught both ways.
We are, and all right. Some of the plums in that box are a little hard. I'll use those. I'll show you. But I guess I didn't show her so well. Not if it came out like that.
Well, obviously something went wrong. Most probably the timing, because that's the tricky part. Suppose you tell us, as nearly as you can remember, what you did.
Well, first I added some water to the plums. Not too much. I remember you saying how important it was not to stretch the juices.
That's a very important point, Susan, because the flavor in your jam or jelly depends entirely on the flavor in your fruit. And that's one of the chief reasons for making your own jams and jellies, to be sure of real fruit flavor. Go on, Susan.
Well, then I put the plums on the stove to boil. I used a broad, flat-bottomed pan, like you said, and boiled until they were soft. That was just about, 20 minutes. Then I poured it into a jelly cloth. I had that set up so that the juice would drip from the colander right into a bowl. And I helped it along some with a potato masher. Mother was watching me while I measured out the juice and the sugar. And I used a cup of sugar to a cup of juice.
That's another reason I like this way. You don't use so much sugar, so the jelly doesn't get too sweet.
Mother, it may come as a surprise to you. But one of the first things we learned in class is that there's no difference to speak of in the sugar content of a glass of this jelly, regardless of how it's made. Jelly has to have the proper proportion of sugar in order to gel, whether you use the long boil or the short boil.
But you do use more sugar with the short boil, as you call it.
Yes, but hardly any juice boils away with the short boil method. So, with more juice, you need more sugar. And you end up with more jelly.
That's right, isn't it?
Substantially, yes. There are two schools of thought on the long boil versus the short boil methods. Most people now short boil. The last figures I saw said over 70%. But there are still some who prefer long boiling. Actually, there are some fruits that have a lot of natural pectin in them, and long boilers get consistently good results with them. Such fruits as crabapple, damson plums, and quince. But in most fruits, the amount varies, and some never have very much pectin at all, like strawberries, pineapple, peaches, even grapes are uncertain. Such fruits must have pectin added if they're to gel properly, and there the short boil method is decidedly the answer. So we teach both methods and let you make your own decisions. Now, Susan, let's get back to you. How did your boiling go?
Well, from the results, I'm not so sure. But it seemed all right. It finally got to the point where the juice slid off the spoon in 2 drops and formed a sheet, just the way you showed us. It looks right to me. I think it's boiled long enough.
It looks thin to me. I'd let it go a bit longer.
But, Mother, that's the test. When 2 drops fall at one time like that, it means it's done. I'm going to take it off. So I did. But I guess my mother was right.
Yes, I'm afraid she was. But that doesn't mean the test itself was wrong. There are other factors to be considered along with it. Possibly the plums were too ripe and had lost too much of their pectin. These are things that take a little experience when you're long boiling, so don't feel too badly. Now today I'm going to take up a few jam and jelly quickies, where you don't have the problem of shopping for fresh fruit, and you don't have to worry about fruits being in season. This morning I'm going to make grape juice jelly, using bottled grape juice, or canned if you wish, and a powdered fruit pectin. One pint of grape juice, 1 cup of water, 1 package of powdered fruit pectin, then place over heat and stir until the mixture comes to a hard boil. Because powdered pectin will not dissolve in sugar, this must always be done before the sugar's added. This takes 3½ cups of sugar. That's 1.5 pounds. It needs occasional stirring to keep the sugar from sticking to the bottom. But to be on the safe side, and because the time's comparatively short, you just keep stirring until it reaches a full rolling boil. This can't be stirred down. You boil it for only 1 minute, and a minute later your jelly is done. Skim the foam. It's just fruit protein and air, but your jelly will look better without it. And you have about 7 medium glasses of jelly. A medium glass holds 6 fluid ounces, or about 8 ounces of weight. So in just 15 minutes or less for the whole process, you're pouring paraffin seals on 7 glasses of jelly. And you can do it with any bottled or canned fruit juice that you like. Now here's a glass of jelly, which I made exactly the same way on Friday after class, so that you could see just what the results would be. So, that's one quickie method. And there are at least 2 more that you'll find very handy from time to time. I found one being used just the other day in the kitchen of a woman who's been making her own jams and jellies for 30 years, yet now depends almost entirely on frozen fruits.
I'll show you my jellies and jams. Any kind I want, anytime we want them. The fruit is clean, it's ripe, economical, the pick of the crop, and there are exact recipes made up for just these packages. On the other hand, there's young Martha Eldridge, who lives in the apartment downstairs. She makes wonderful jellies and jams using just the dried fruits.
You can start out with 1/2 pound of dried apricots and end up with 11 glasses of a tasty apricot jam, costing me about 9 cents apiece. Of course, I make other kinds of jams and jellies too, because I use them in lots of ways, not only as a spread for bread, like a tapioca parfait, on muffins or biscuits, jelly turnovers, and of course, the old-fashioned jelly roll is my husband's very favorite dessert.
And jams and jellies do simply wonderful things as garnishes for meats and poultry. With lamb, grape or plum, or of course the classic mint jelly. Spiced peach jam with pork. Cherry or raspberry jam, or the new orange jelly with chicken or turkey. There are at least 100 different jams, jellies, and marmalades that can be made with generally available American fruits, and dozens of ways to use every one.
And we can start right here with strawberry jelly, my scoffing sisters. Now, there's something you won't find in many stores, and if you could, it would cost you much more than if you made it yourself. Who's scoffing? Just you look. Rhubarb jelly, my scoffing sisters. Varieties you can't ordinarily buy at any price.
I'm not scoffing.
And blueberry and rhubarb. Combinations to please your own taste. And raspberry jam that tastes like delicious, fully ripe raspberries, because that's what you used in it. And pomegranate jelly. Now, isn't it lovely? And at a fraction of the prices you'd pay in the stores. Now, is that a contribution to homemaking, or isn't it? apricot jam, pineapple mint jam, orange marmalade, and even fig jam. Honestly, Ellen, I get a thrill out of just looking at them. And so will you, because it'll be something that you made yourself. You, Ellen Douglas. Well, just think of setting them down in front of Bill and saying, Bill, look, I made these myself. Well, now, what do you think he'd say? Bill Porter.
I'll tell you what he'd say. He'd say I knew my wife was beautiful. I knew she had brains. But I never realized she had such talent. Say, that looks good. When do we eat?
And the fruits of the earth shall yield unto you sustenance for your body, flavor for your tongue, beauty for your eye, treasures for the taking, greater treasures for the making.